Well, we have this story from Timcast.com. Nearly 70% of liberals say it's more important to protect Ukraine's border than our own.
What?
I don't know if it's 70%.
I gotta see the
Did we
poll
get an
here.
error in here? I thought it was 57.
You have a link to the poll on this one because it might be
Okay,
1,000
but
people.
I think that doesn't surprise me, and I think
Yeah, it's 57.
The reason it doesn't surprise me is
should
because
fix that.
there's a lot of people that I know. Again, I always make a distinction between liberal and the left, but there's a lot of people on the left that I know that in any other country in the world is better than our own. Like we are uniquely evil in some capacity for which we must pay. I don't know. We just need to be sorry all the time. And so the idea that you would ask them, should we protect our border or Ukraine's? Of course it would be Ukraine's, because the only way we would protect our border is if, we're all a bunch of racists.
This defies Jesus' logic.
Did you
Take the
see
plank
that-
out of your own eye first?
Did you see that they're calling on CBP to leave the southern border to go to Poland to process Ukrainian refugees? It's remarkably
I'm going to
insane.
check that up as things that don't surprise me anymore.
Yeah, no.
Things that don't surprise me anymore.
Wow.
So, okay, back to the story for a second. You said it's 57, 58%?
57% of Democrats.
So the title was wrong, but we're going to copyright that.
I think the title is
Okay,
wrong.
so somewhere between 57 and 70, but you think it's
A
more close
majority.
to 57? 49% of them.
Well, you got to log into Rasmussen if you want to get the hard numbers.
The
But I thought it
idea
was
that we
57.
should send our National Guard overseas to fight is completely insane. That's completely insane to me. That's
Our custom and border protection agents, like
it's border
These
patrol.
are
Yeah, but
like
what border?
our border patrol. Their job is to run the border, and they're like, you can go to Poland.
Oh, yeah,
go,
no,
go
What
to the
happened?
Ukrainian
Is
border.
it? You think it's because they fired so many people for not being vaccinated?
No,
That
it's
actually
'cause-
sounds like they would allocate resources. Like, you're a border patrol and there's a border issue in Ukraine.
Oh,
Hey,
yeah,
that's where you
perfect
should
fit.
be. Right, and by the way, does Ukraine have a coast? Because we have a coast guard.
We do,
We
yeah.
could use that.
Right. Holy
Yeah.
crap.
yeah, they got a coast off the Black Sea.
They have a
Let's-
government, so they
There we
could use
go.
our army.
Sure could. Yeah.
Governments need armies. They could have
They have
ours.
ships.
Wow,
Yeah, maybe.
man. That's why I was saying the other day, I'm like, I'm ready to just put my feet up and crack open a coconut.
No, never give up.
Never surrender.
Always chance. Always change.
It's not so much give up, but kind of like just glide.
Well, that's good.
Like we've fallen off the cliff. Just spread your wings and enjoy it.
I do think we
Go
need to
out.
make entertainment for a while and veer away from the negativity and of war and conflict and.
So I don't think those two. Interestingly enough, I don't think those two things are mutually exclusive.
I like it.
Not an either or proposition. In fact, I'm willing to say, and again, this is not one of those. This is not one of those. George Bush, we just got attacked, so go shopping, right? Like, I'm not saying that. I do think there's a realm
That
for,
was
like,
funny.
sacrifice when the times call for it. But like, as I look at like all the things that are kind of under assault and the way things are acting, there is a huge realm right now. One of the reasons why we are in the situation that we're in right now is because we didn't fight for the cultural space. We might fight for the political space. We didn't fight for the cultural space, which is why it is dominated by a certain perspective or viewpoint. And I tell parents this all the time when they're at, well, how are we going to fix our schools? Or how are we going to, like, well, if you think you're going to fix your schools with one election cycle, you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
Because your child is now going to a school which in many cases is pushing a particular worldview or a piece of propaganda that might not coincide with your own beliefs about your country or faith or whatever. I said then they come home and they watch they watch Netflix, right? And chances are whatever they're watching there is going to be pushing a particular worldview. Then they turn on a song which is pushing a worldview. Then they look at the media which is pushing a worldview. And then they go to their college professor which is pushing a worldview. And then what do you get? 30 minutes around the dinner table? Like, you think this is sufficient? And so any sort of activity I see which is pushing into that cultural space, which is so critical, because everything political is downstream from culture, is absolutely necessary and one of the most important fronts that we're in right now.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
but there's two good things to say here. Some optimism. One is you've got the Daily Wire ramping up production of cultural content. They're buying movies.
Yeah.
They absolutely see your point and they're working towards it. But then I would say that when you say we haven't gotten involved in the culture, or I forgot exactly how you said it. Well, Ian and I did not come into this as conservatives.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people who were working in some kind of entertainment, some kind of media or cultural space, and now find themselves in agreement on many core issues of freedom in the United States and our Constitution with conservatives.
Yeah.
And that's giving a big cultural boon.
Yeah.
It's so, we talked with the guy from the Daily Wire about, how we can expand our cultural content. We have a vlog. We do silly jokes and have fun, and we do flips and into bean bags and stuff. But we're talking about, things we can do. We launched a show called Tales from the Inverted World.
Yeah.
Which is, and we have a book available at invertedworldbook.com. And it's mysteries, UFOs, ghost stories, because, we've always been involved in that.
Yeah.
We actually got a mix of a song that we've been putting together. So we're putting out music. It's fantastic stuff.
Yeah. Goosebumps.
So like I grew up playing music. I grew up making skate videos. I grew up making videos with my friends. And now what the left has kind of screwed up is that they're constantly pushing people. They're making authoritarian demands of people to give in to their politics and their views, or else. And a lot of people are saying, or else, and they're walking away.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now there's an opportunity here for conservatives to get back in the game and push back on the left. And I think in the long run, the left will lose the culture. Cultural.
I was in Hollywood acting 2006, 7, 8 kind of, and I was like, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to become a famous actor and then be able to give the speech at the Oscars that changes everyone.
Yeah.
That was my idea. But it was so dirty, that industry. I felt so sexualized, and they were like, you're just so sexy. Sex. And I'm like,
it's got to be rough.
Out of here, man.
It's got to be tough.
I felt their fingers coming at me, and I just ran. But I bailed on culture for like a decade. I started building Minds, the social network.
That's why people get involved in politics, is because we're not pretty enough for Hollywood and we're too stupid for the private sector. So
Wow.
Yes,
There
case
you
in
go.
point.
But it's got to be done.
It's got to be done.
It's one of the
I
most.
just I didn't like that top-down pressure in Hollywood of like the oligarchs of Hollywood that were these like weird sexual deviants. It seemed like they were kind of creating the feel or the energy of the system. It was gross.
Yeah.
Beautiful city though, until recently, I guess, because the homeless incursion is terrifying, but beautiful weather, that's for sure. Because of the valley,
it's gorgeous.
the mountains, and it's like you got snow-capped peaks to the north an hour, you got the desert to the east in an hour, you got the ocean to the west in an hour, you got the hills just 20 minutes north of you, the beautiful valley. It's an incredible city.
Oh yeah.
They called it the City of the Angels for a reason.
Yeah.
Actually, it has Los Angeles has a really weird long name. You ever look it up? Yeah,
that is weird. I remember
it's like
looking
super
that up.
long. It's like the river of the women who I don't know,
Spanish,
some like really long.
I used
find
to,
it?
Yeah, I'm looking it up now.
Yeah, well, you look at California, man, and they say California's our future. That California is 5 years ahead of the rest of the country.
No, so here's what I think. I think California is going to be a wonderful place to live in about 20 years, and then Texas is going to be the problem.
Yeah, I agree. That's why people were telling us like you should go to Austin. I was like, no way.
Oh, so I call it and I did this once, and I think it was like I don't know, Occupy Democrats or Blue Virginia, or someone got like furious, like, oh, I can't believe he called us locusts, because it's the locust theory. The locusts have no idea that they're the ones eating all the crops. They're just wondering why all the prosperity's gone. And then they go somewhere else to find more crops. I'm like, okay, so no, I'm not comparing you to people to locusts. I'm saying that it's this idea that someone will come in, see all this prosperity, use it, then destroy it. And then when they move, they don't realize that, okay, you're taking the policies that created the destruction with you. Maybe don't do that this time.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I'm not calling people locusts. I'm calling them a virus.
I'm
kidding.
I think this is the mindset of the World Economic Forum, is that people are destroying recklessly without reproducing the environment. So they were like, okay, that's a big problem, and we're gonna have to,
they look at people like a fire,
like animals. Yeah.
just consuming carbon and expanding the growth and just burning things down.
Well, and
Numbers,
it's
utilitarian.
fascinating. They never want to take a look at the fact. I can't remember who it was that had the bet, but it was with that. It was with one of these guys that was predicting in the 70s that we would be engaged in a series of world famines, and like all of our natural resources would be out. Paul
Krugman.
Earl Rick. Good guess though.
Paul
Good
Krugman,
guess though.
often wrong.
If you're talking about a guy that makes crappy predictions,
wrong.
Paul Krugman would have been a really, really good pick. But Paul Ehrlich had, and so this other economist came in, and I think he told him, he's like, pick 5 natural resources, and I'll bet that in 20 years they're all cheaper than they are today.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Ehrlich engaged in the bet and lost.
Yes.
Because it's this idea that no, human beings have this amazing capacity to adapt if they're not being controlled by, an authoritarian central government that's trying to control their lives or treating them like they're a virus.
Yeah. But how about we make that bet now? Do you think things will be getting cheaper? And I would say from this point forward,
in Singapore.
yeah. I think we're in for a world of hurt.
Why in Singapore?
If we boot Russia from SWIFT, then everything's going to get more expensive.
Well, I got a story here. I think that Russia is leaving SWIFT. I don't think that they're going to wait to get booted. I got a story from Russia-briefing.com. Russia and China to develop SWIFT avoiding international financial systems. What's that?
Of course.
I just don't know about the source.
No, but Russia and China have been trying to get off the dollar for a long time.
Yeah, that makes sense. So
I think Putin's known. You can't imagine this guy has risen to the level he's risen to without planning for something like this.
Yeah, for sure.
What would be interesting, I was talking with my team about this, like, what do we think is the worst case scenario? And what we were talking was like, okay, he takes Ukraine, he uses that as kind of like a trial balloon, right? Takes Ukraine, doesn't really suffer any major consequences for it. And then you start to look at, incursions into places like Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, where we're talking about, again, the Belt and Road Initiative. And now you start to see this block, this Russian-Chinese block, where you have a massive amount of natural resources. You've solved some of the population issues that Russia's having with expansion. And then you have just these major spheres of influence. And then it becomes almost kind of like a remake of the Cold War on some level. Now, again, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I'm saying it's not science fiction to look at this and be like, okay, yeah, I can look at a map and I can look at what he's doing and I can look at where resources are at and I can see where spheres of influence would potentially engage, and then where do we go from there? And to your point, back when it was the West and the Soviet Union, you had people coming off of World War II. You had generations that were familiar with sacrifice, familiar with fighting, that they had a strong sense of patriotism. They had a strong sense of moral responsibility to themselves, their family, their country, etc. And now you're talking about a world where I don't think anybody believes that we have that same sense as widespread throughout the population, given some of the things that we're complaining about right now, and some of the things that people honestly believe are really key issues. And so it's weird to look at where the power dynamic is going to be from a cultural standpoint at that level.
I think moving forward, if we look back at home and we can see what's going on culturally, I'm not so convinced the U.S. is going to be a major player in international conflict the same way they are now. Or I think it's obvious that influence is waning. Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.